So I'm John Damon, a Health Innovators Fellow here at the Aspen Institutes, and I'm thrilled to be here in Aspen, Colorado at the Resnick Aspen Action Forum. Today I'm joined by two amazing human beings who are member fellows of different fellowships. Mpati Makgalo, who is a Africa Leadership Initiative South Africa Fellow, and Michelle Culver, who is a Pahara Fellow. And we come from these different corners of the world, but with a common focus and mission and passion to do something different, because we are facing what is arguably the largest and most vexing crisis of our lifetime, the youth mental health crisis. And we know the statistics of loneliness and helplessness and the suicide rates, and we're in those data points all day long. As overwhelming as those statistics are, there's something bigger.
Yeah.
There's something that is more powerful, and that is hope.
Yes.
And despite the books we may have read in business school, hope is a strategy.
That's right.
And there's over 2,000 published articles that demonstrate that hope is the biggest predictor of a life well lived.
Yes.
It is the most powerful emotion in the human experience. And it is something that is defined as A, I believe my future can be brighter, and B, have the power to make it so.
Yes.
And Patty, if I might could start with you, tell us a little bit about your why.
Thank you so much, John. The establishment of Hill SA was informed by my journey with mental health. You know, there's a lot of stigma around mental health in South Africa. We don't even have a word for depression or anxiety in our own language. So mental health, you can, in terms of priorities, very, very low. Our government spends about 5% of their health budget on mental health. We're seeing a lot of substance abuse. We're seeing a lot of suicide ideation, depression, and anxiety. And we then came up with a program whereby we have a dedicated helpline that young people can contact Monday to Friday. We also have support groups. As you spoke about hope, hope is something that you have to have somebody that can bring to you to say, well, you know, I can see you're not well today, John. Here's Heal South Africa. And we already trained them. They already know what mental health, we've given them the mental health literacy because children, they live in a community. So you can't just empower them without empowering the community around them.
Michelle.
Okay, so I come to this as an educator. I started my career teaching in Compton in the late 90s. And most recently, I was leading an innovation lab at Teach for America. So one of the first things that we did was we brought on youth leaders to join our team and to help imagine the future of learning. And one of the things I kept realizing was that so often the adult conversations and the youth conversations felt so different when it came to mental health. It was as though for us in education, we see these soft skills, the mental health supports, the socio-emotional learning as a means to an academic end. And when we talked to our young people, they were saying, I want to feel alive, period. I want to feel healthy and well. I want to feel not overwhelmed and scared and unsupported in pursuit of what I want out of life. So I was sort of struck by this awareness that young people are lonelier and more disconnected than ever before. And at the same time, I became really present to the fact that it's about to get a lot more complicated with the arrival of generative AI. And so I'd been, of course, in these R&D spaces where, again, in education, we were talking about how AI is going to change the way we work, the way we teach, the way we learn, but not at all in how it's going to change the way we relate to each other as people. And that dissonance started making me feel like, wow, we're really missing a moment because these two forces, the loneliness epidemic and the arrival of generative AI, they're about to collide. And if we could rewind and play again, then no doubt we would do some things differently in support of our young people's mental health and thriving. So that's the birth of the Rhythm Project, is to figure out what happens when these forces collide and shape it for good, the agency and power we have to shape our technology alongside the heartbeat of humanity and that rhythm.
Yeah, and that was something we were talking about earlier, is it's not just the myopic lens of education or health, but the kid lives in an ecology, right, in a broader context.
Part of the question that I think about when I wake up in the morning is how's the world going to change around our young people that's going to impact and affect their mental health and well-being, and the relationships that they have with other humans.
Yeah.
And so there's two trends that I'm paying close attention to right now, and I share this knowing that generative AI is moving at such a fast pace that this will evolve pretty quickly. But the first is just chatbots and the relationships that we're starting to have with these companion bots.
Wow.
So you can imagine a world where very soon we will blink and a young person's going to grow up in a world with an AI math tutor, an AI friend, an AI therapist, an AI girlfriend, all at the same time in which they're learning how to build their relationships with humans.
Wow.
Yes, I mean, middle school's hard enough already as is. A friend actually, Sherry Lackman, said to me when I was talking to her about this, she said, it's almost like we're going to need to learn how to live with an entirely new species. And so again, knowing what we know about the importance of healthy relationships in mental health, this is a very important inflection moment. The second thing that I'm paying quite a bit of attention to is the arrival of deep fakes and synthetic media. So part of what we can do is, folks who are thankfully in a good place is trust that what I'm seeing is real with you. And know that you would represent my likeness in a way that would honor my choice, my agency. And increasingly, that's not something that young people can count on. So there's these nudification apps, for example, that a young person can take someone else's image and without consent undress them using AI. So this is starting to unfold. Exactly. So this is you're going to start to see on middle schools and high schools and in communities starting to unfold quickly, and we have no way of learning how to be with this because it's entirely new. So thinking about those two trends, this is not a silver bullet solution kind of thing. This is going to be thinking about public narrative, helping people understand what's coming, figuring out how to influence technology and what gets built, helping consumer markets understand how to respond to it, helping young people reflect on what they're experiencing so that they can find that agency and hope that you're describing so that they can be, influence their trajectory. It's about changing systems like education systems that don't prioritize this kind of education because they don't see it as a part of their core responsibility. So this is a complex set of things. So what we're doing in the Rhythm Project to start to tackle this, twofold. One is convening. So to your point, we've got to break down these silos. So I recently hosted the Human Connection and AI Summit here in Colorado, and it was breathtaking. We brought 40 people from different sectors, so technologists, youth leaders, educators, mental health professionals, all together into one room, and created a set of shared experiences that were immersive, that allowed us to touch and experience the tools, or to step into the future and imagine through immersive theater what is a possible vision of what could happen in the year 2044. And those shared experiences then allow us to come back out and say, well, what about those possible futures do we want to pull towards us, and what do we want to mitigate against? And that's where we start to see some of that hope and agency that we've been talking about together, the three of us, start to emerge, because it's less out there or mystified.
You're not just scenario planning on a whiteboard.
No,
you're
it's like
experientially stepping into it.
And I can see how it's going to impact you, and I can see how it's going to impact you, and we're coming at this from different ways. So that kind of collaborative learning has been a really big part of this. And then once that kind of convening happens and those relationships start to exist in a cross-sector way, the second part of the work is catalyzing the action that comes from that. And of course, the Aspen Institute's been a great model for how you start to bring people from different places together to come and get into action together.
Yes. So for the last 20 months or so, this incredible group of Health Innovators Fellows have been kind of coming alongside the effort and brainstorming and meeting, and we have developed this digital solution that is a way to screen and then triage and then navigate kids to the help that they need. So we use the hope scale to assess what is their hope level, because we know it's the best predictor, right, of their life well lived. And then for families, we're screening for social determinants of health, right, to kind of, because kids live in the ecology, right, so how do we deal with the home as well? But then screen them for hope that then kind of places them into kind of green, yellow, or red, right? And so based on that, we can provide kind of primary, secondary, and tertiary strategies, right? So maybe they just need some supports. They need education around goals and the tenets of hope, right? Or maybe they need self-directed cognitive behavioral therapy work that Learn to Live does, and we can supply them with that. Or they might need like tertiary care. They might need a mental health clinician. So part of what we have these kids learning about, right, is the 3 tenets of how you make hope rise in your life. It is number 1, a clear and compelling goal. Something you want to wake up in the morning for, right? Not your parents' goal, not your coach's goal, not your teacher's goal. What is a goal in your life that I will wake up tomorrow and run after? Number 2 is multiple pathways to reach that goal. Okay. So just like on our GPS, right? You're trying to get here from wherever. If there's a wreck or there's a toll or there's a, you can navigate, because what the research tells us is that the more pathways we have, when a path is blocked and we have an alternate, hope can continue to rise. But if you only got one way to get to your goal and it's blocked, hope is dropping. So clear and compelling goal, multiple pathways to reach the goal. And then third, it is about how do we leverage the willpower and the agency, the fuel, if you will, that drives the car to reach the goal, right? And what we know in the literature is that our willpower is biologically limited, right? So if you don't do that workout in the morning, it's probably not going to happen when you get home, right? So that first thing, so that's limited. So what we have to do is bring others around you who hold out that willpower when you can't. And so that's what AA, NA, Weight Watchers, all of that is doing, is it's accountability in the context of I love you and I care for you and I'm not going to let you give up on that goal, right? And so that's what they're learning to do. That's what they're getting on their phone. They're learning, and then we're trying to drive that and scale that so that we can watch all those domains that educators are interested in, right? The metrics that matter in education or in healthcare, to drive that through the venue of hope. As we have a group of a lot of leaders, incredible leaders that are watching, maybe we kind of land this discussion a little bit around how leaders might get involved in the work.
I look at the simplest thing as advertising, and you wouldn't think about it. Like if I would go to a township in South Africa and there's a Heal SA billboard and there's something that just talks to a young boy to say, actually, I can go seek for help. And it's okay, and there's no shame, So for me, I think do not restrict yourself in terms of the kind of work that you can support us with. But of course, actual funding help us to be able to do or carry the work that we do. And also make it unrestricted. I think
that's a great word.
Yeah, because I mean, healing is non-linear. So when you come now with very prescriptive ways of funding us, then it makes the work harder for us, And we're not saying we're not outcome based. We're not saying we're not deliver, but given the space that we are, let it be flexible in terms of what can be done. I
love that, and I've noticed that some foundations who are really interested are starting to learn that these prescriptive pieces that we're putting out aren't really hitting the mark. And I've found that they've been much more open to let's have a dialogue on the front side, so that RFP could be something that hits the mark.
You just reminded me. That's what happened with the Department of Health right now. They are in South Africa. They are forming a psychosocial support for young people in high schools, and they did just that about 3-4 weeks ago. To say, come,
more of that.
Exactly, we need to get together, understand what the kind of work that you do, and then decide on how we move forward. But with the consensus and the consultation with the people who are already doing the work.
Actually doing the work.
Yes.
Well, then we can all, then we can all learn together. So it's not an assumption that there is a clear path. Part of this is learning forward, trying things, looking at the data, adjust again and adjust again. So it allows us to learn forward. We're at a field building moment. You spoke about this so beautifully in the way you were describing the current state in your country, but even here in the U.S., this understanding of what's happening for young people, particularly in the intersection of their experience with technology, is still very new. And so we have such an opportunity, and again, tech can be incredibly positive or it can have a really adverse effect. So I think inviting anybody from whatever sector they are in to be able to start to talk about this to be able to say that this matters, this is a moment to influence, and to see their own responsibility in it. So you talked a little bit too about how relationships live everywhere, and so therefore nowhere. And so we have to see ourselves as responsible, no matter what sector you're in, as on the hook for helping young people develop these healthy, thriving relationships.
I think as I think about how leaders might get involved, one thing that I think is in every boardroom discussion right now is the workforce crisis. I mean, it's in every domain. Part of what we want to do is there are places, particularly mental health providers, right? You think about South Africa, you can't even talk about it, much less produce a pipeline of mental health providers, right? So how do we create, in the absence of being able to create the workforce that we need, how do we create a care force? How do we equip like grandmothers, mothers, teachers, coaches, everybody to be ambassadors of hope? Like if you can't do anything else, you can provide this. It's not mental health first aid in its proper way, but it's a way that you can easily be trained quickly on the tenets of hope that we talked about, and be able to be an ambassador to a kid on that. So that all of a sudden takes some pressure off of the workforce that are seeing the 1 in 5 by helping the 4 in 5 who aren't there yet.
That's right.
And so thinking business leaders who want to create a care force in their organizations. Because they all have employees who have families, who have children, who go to school and work in communities. And so, let's learn how to do equip hope, right? Let's do that. 2, I think about, and we were talking earlier about funding, and when you think about funding in a developmental context, right, of their early stage fundings that you need, and when you think about business already has this worked out of how they do stage 1 and 2 funding.
That's right.
Social sector does not.
That's right.
We have the same needs. We need angel investors and seed funders to think about how do we help overcome initial inertia, to give demonstration that the data is solid, and it can be replicable, it can be scalable.
I like that.
So I think about like those who want to make social impact. They want to make a difference in their community, in their family, in youth mental health. Let's help come alongside the initiative to scale hope, to train in that, to help fund those initial pieces to demonstrate, and then those that have relationships with payer systems and government systems and foundations and philanthropies who might be interested in making a dent in the world. As we started, the statistics are overwhelming, and they can be depressing, and they can be immobilizing. But I am convinced, working with some of the most difficult families in the state, that hope overcomes. I'm 100% convinced. So we want those, and as I think about partners, right, and those ideal folks out there want to get involved, I really kind of delineate between 2 groups that we work with. There's kind of transactional vendors, and there's transformational partners.
We want the latter.
And I want the latter. Like I ain't got. Do you have 10 minutes? Are you no?
Exactly.
But I'll drive 4 hours to meet with you and stay all day if you're in this category.
I get you.
That's who I think whoever might be watching that's interested in this conversation. That says, I want to be transformational.
I love
there's
that.
a place for you. There's a place
we'll
for
find
you.
a way.
100%.
I love that.
That's 100%. I love even this conversation as a microcosm. We didn't know each other several weeks ago. And now we're committed, not just within our fellowship, but between fellowships to really do this work together.
Definitely.
So thank you. Well, I hope to the leaders listening that you'll find a way to grab the rope with us and pull. We really do believe that hope is bigger, and it is the most powerful emotion in the human experience, and it is the one and best predictor of a life well lived, which is what we're all about here at the Aspen Institute. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing, John. Amazing, Michelle. Amazing.